It just occurred to me, David, that maybe we should explain what product we were actually selling. I mean, that we were really a publishing company. We became a publishing company, a trade publication, a publishing company, and a global trade publishing company.
Yes, and there were monthly reports, but there were also color forecasts where the colors were dyed to our specification. There were special fabric reports where you actually got touchy-feely fabric swatches glued in page after page. So it wasn't a magazine because it looked like a magazine, but it was much more expensive than a magazine ever could have been.
It was well over $1,000 a year.
And that was money in those days.
Yeah. So by now it'd be $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 a year.
Yes.
So yes, I think one of the important points for us is that the reports had to be visual and sensual.
Yes.
Taking the five senses that we could see, we could, hear the rustle of the taffeta, we could smell the fabrics. That it was a very sensual experience going through the IM report. And tell our audience about how we broke it up, how the report looked, because you were such a huge part of that.
Oh, yes. Well, the information had to be fed to the various segments of the fashion industry in the right order. And so we would concept based on your kind of gut feeling of what was going on in the world and my fashion interpretation of it, we would figure that out 19 months before the merchandise was actually needed on the selling floor. So in those 19 months, we would first do the colors. Then we would announce the trends and actually design things that didn't exist in whatever moods we thought were going to be right for the season. Then we would start designing, actually doing our own designs of how to manufacture that. Then we would cover the runway shows later on to see if what we had forecasted was also on the minds of the top designers in Paris and London and Milan. And then finally, we would report on how our trends were received once they were at retail. And we were kind of ruthless. We would admit it if we made a mistake or if our timing was a little bit too early or if we did something controversial. Like I remember when we started touting punk as a fashion influence and the number of cancellations that you had to receive when people said, I think you've lost your mind. People are never going to wear T-shirts with holes in and tattoos, yes, and black leather, and then within 6 months, every woman in the world had a tight black leather skirt on, even if she didn't know it had started in the punk scene on the King's Road.
And recently, there was an opening at the Metropolitan that was punk.
Yes.
So it became very in and elegant.
Yes, and when you think about Alexander McQueen as a designer, dark and frightening and sinister and the fad for skulls, that really is still the fallout from the punk movement that started late in the 70s in London. I think you're so right that the power of London is still there creatively.
Yes, it really is. And the many different types of designers. I read recently that one of my favorites, Ozzie Clark, influenced Yves Saint Laurent, for example, and and yet very different styles. But to me, Ozzie with his fluid, layered, lightweight, just breezy dresses, and his wife was doing the print, Celia Birdwell. And he honestly influenced so many couture designers later.
And the thing that I think makes a big difference, there were people like Ozzie Clark and his wife who were true Londoners who had a passion for what they did, and it wasn't their idea to become a major luxury global brand, which is I think one of the problems with the fashion industry today. Every young person wants to become Marc Jacobs and build an empire. And in the days that we were selling creativity is really what we were selling.
Yes.
People were valued creativity more than they do now. Now they value the bottom line, and that's the beginning and the end of every decision.